welcome back to the show. And today we're talking about fast fundraising, using your intuition, how Laura raised 300K plus in 30 days for her new product, Ropig. And we're going to look at why she raised capital rather than bootstrapping, how she used her intuition in deciding who to pitch, and how she decided who not to pitch to, and several mindset shifts she went through around asking people for money and not wanting to bug people. And we'll also talk about the dark side of VCs and what her views are on that. And if we have time, we'll have a look at the pitch deck energy that was somewhat lacking. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Michaela. I'm happy to be here.
So those of you who don't know, she is the founder of Meet Edgar and now Ropig, and also had two previous businesses before Meet Edgar, I believe. And she runs a company that has over 30 employees, all working remotely, and has had incredible growth in the last few years. So congrats on that. But yeah. you decided you want to create a new product. And what exactly is Ropig? It's not for pigs, right?
No, a pig would not be able to use it. It's for software engineers and DevOps engineers. It's a tool for the software industry to track all the different alerts and notifications you get and consolidate them and send them to the right place. So it's what's called an alert management tool.
All right. So why did you decide to raise capital? Because your previous business, you bootstrapped it, and didn't you think that raising capital was evil or naughty or?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, and just to give the full context, I like to say that Meet Edgar is a bootstrap, but also self-funded, because I did have a good chunk of money profits from my previous business to put into Meet Edgar. So I just think that's a good clarification, because I know people watching sometimes are like, how did she take, $1 and turn it into this $4 million business in a few years? And that's not like, it's good to know that there was a few $100,000 that was put into the business. It was just my own money from my own profits, which is considered a form of bootstrapping. So with Ropig, I initially did the same. So I decided to commit $500K of my own money into building Ropig. And basically what happened is we ran out of money, or we saw that we were going to run out of money. Luckily it wasn't until we actually ran out of money, but it was like, we thought this 500 was going to get us through launch in a few months. That's not going to happen. Basically, more or less, we spent the whole 500 just building the product. It was a much more expensive product to build than Edgar was for various reasons. So when I saw that was true, it was this choice of, put more of my own money into it. We could cut off all costs and just and when I say we, that's my husband and I building the business together, Chris, just try to do it with our time, but that wasn't really the model. We already had a team of programmers, and that just wasn't really the plan for building it. So it became pretty obvious that I should consider getting some more money from somewhere if I wanted the business to live on. And that's when I really started researching, okay, what are the different ways to raise money? Are there some ways to raise money and to have investors that are not the typical Silicon Valley thing that I have a lot of issues with? Is there a way to do this that would feel in alignment for me? And I found out that there was.
Well, that's great. And we'll talk a little bit later about, the VC model and why you don't like that. But how did you decide who you were going to pitch to? Because it's, you basically took people you knew and said, hey, give me money, right? But you didn't do that with everyone you knew.
Yeah. So they call it, friends and family fundraising. Friends fundraising, and my choice. I don't have any family members with any money to pitch, but I do have friends with money because I've known founders for so long. So everyone who I was pitching, is a founder or in the startup industry in some way and has made their money that way. And I knew I would need to reach a lot of people in order. So my goal was 500,000. We ended up raising 350. So, you know, I got close enough. And the minimum investment was 25K. So it wasn't like, I wasn't just going after, often you're going after one, you know, they always call it a check, one check for 500K. I was going after a bunch of checks for 25K. So I knew I would need to approach a lot of people. So, you know, my, my criteria was that I thought they might be interested in this opportunity. And I tried to remind myself of people that have pitched me, because, you know, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of people raising money for businesses. And generally I've been really excited about it. I've been happy that they've included me, you know, even if I decided not to do it. I've been excited to learn more about the business and what they're doing. So it's always hard to see that stuff for yourself. I think with your own projects, you often feel like, no one's going to care about this. I don't want to bother anyone. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm someone else and think about how it actually felt good to receive this from people that I had a good relationship with. So I'm like, if it's someone I know, even if it's some people I hadn't talked to for like 5 years, but I knew that they would like to hear from me. Well, I don't know. I guessed that they would like to hear from me. I felt like, you know, we had a good relationship and they might like to know the new business I was building. So yeah, I pitched hundreds of people.
So there you are at the end of December last year. The initial funding idea you had fallen through. And now you've got 30 days you set yourself to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're looking through like your email address book and your telephone address book and your social media. How did you, you know, how were you drawn to particular people? Was there some intuitive part of that as well as a rational part? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the intuitive was probably more the people who I didn't pick, is probably where intuitive played a stronger role.
So just put yourself back there. You're looking at someone's name and you're like, you chose in the end not to pitch to them.
Yeah.
What was happening? How were you getting that intuitive information?
That I felt like I wouldn't want to be held accountable to them. Because, you know, when people invest in your business, you're making a promise to them that you're going to try your hardest to make this work out for them. And that's a big downside, I think, of accepting investors. That was a reason that I had chosen not to do it before, because I didn't want to be beholden to other people. So if I'm making this deliberate choice to be beholden in some way to other people, I want to make sure that they're people that I don't feel like are going to put unnecessary pressure. Well, not even just pressure, not even unnecessary pressure. I didn't want anyone who was going to be difficult, put pressure on me, you know, try to get me to run the company in a way that I didn't want to run. And so, yeah, just looking at people's names, whatever information I had about how they operate, how they do business, whatever sort of I've seen from them over the years, if I had that feeling like it might feel like an obligation that I didn't want to be in business with them, I did not pitch them.
Did you get some kind of ucky feeling in your gut, or were you like you just got a bad vibe? Or I mean, obviously, sometimes you could remember why this person wouldn't be a good fit, but other times, I'm guessing you just didn't get a good feeling, so you just didn't hit send on the email to them.
Yeah, I can't say I can like remember the specific like body sensation or anything, but yeah, I tried to trust that if it was like. So I have a life rule that if you think something's a bad idea, you shouldn't do it, because there's a lot of things that you don't know are going to be a bad idea, and you do them and you go, oh, that was a bad idea. So it's like, if ahead of time you're like, that's probably a bad idea, like, don't do that one. So yeah, I think there's probably some people I looked at their names and I'm like, I'm feeling like this is going to be for whatever reason, I'm feeling like this is going to be a bad idea and I might regret this. I'm like, you know what? There's other people, like just skip them. And And sometimes there are a few people that I can remember that like were active startup investors I knew had money, which I don't think is any coincidence because there's a lot of parts of that traditional investment world, like I mentioned, that I do feel can be out of integrity and that I feel out of alignment with. So it's probably not a coincidence that some of the people that I felt like could be the biggest investors were also sometimes the people where I'm like, I don't want to be in business with them.
Mm. Now let's look at that a bit more, because you talked about the relationship you have with your investors, and I'm wondering, is there some kind, as well as like there's like a rational relationship where you've got to send them reports and they may ask you questions, but also I think there's some kind of energetic relationship we have with people who invest in our business. Tell us about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's something I thought a lot about because I knew that I didn't want to, how do I say this? I wasn't going to do it if it meant that it had a boss, that I had a boss. So it needed to feel like a good exchange where they're like, I'm putting money in. I understand that this is a risk. I understand that you're going to do your best. It may or may not work out. And that we felt even in that way. I didn't want it to be a thing where I'm like, now that this person has given me $25,000, I have to ruin my life and put this in front of, all other priorities in my life, which, speaking about that traditional VC thing, I think that's often the relationship that's there. It's like, I gave you $50 million. Like, I don't care if you ever sleep again. Like I need to get a return on my money. So that can be something that can happen for me, even if my investor's not like that, right? That could be a feeling that's created by the business owner because of, guilt or obligation or whatever. So I just wanted to make sure that I felt clean about it, that I'm like, I am taking on a responsibility because I'm telling you that I'm going to be a good steward of your money. But I'm not promising you that this will be always the number one priority in my life. This is one project that I have a big stake, in its success. I'm obviously excited about pursuing, but I'm not promising to give up my life for this $25,000.
Yeah, and maybe that is some of the dark side of VC investing. I mean, obviously they have lots of legal stuff and, rules and things and how they behave, but there's also a kind of energy suck that occurs when you engage with a VC. I mean, I've never had VC funding, but I've done work for companies that did have VC funding, and there was definitely some very weird energy going on.
It's a lot of pressure. I mean, a friend whose company raised a lot of money, the way he phrased it to me was, every week has to be the best week we've ever had. Every week. And when I heard him say that, I thought, I do not want to sign up for that. That does not sound enjoyable. I need a little more breathing room than every week having to be the best week we've ever had. And that's the agreement that a lot of funded companies have made.
Yeah. It's almost like they did a deal with the devil,
Yeah, sometimes.
And you've said in the past about how there are some issues with having to sacrifice your morals if you take VC money. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't think that VC is evil. I think there's lots of different ways to build a business, and some businesses it makes sense to raise a lot of money because it's the nature of the business that you're going to have to spend a lot before the money comes back in. The parts that can be immoral about funded startups is the growth at all costs decision that a lot of companies have made. I mean, obviously Uber has become the big public example of this. Their company grew incredibly quickly. They took on a lot of money. They made a lot of really, really bad decisions that I think were largely fueled by that short-term growth mindset, like all the decisions that they made about their culture and how employees were treated. I think they did that because it's like, who cares how employees are treated? Like we gotta make our numbers, which of course is never, in my opinion, going to work out long-term anyway. You're never going to build this long-term lasting, super successful company when everyone is living in fear there. But short-term, you can churn through people and you can get a lot of work done. And I think often the VC model, because the model is go big or go home, right? The model is, if a company sells for $5 million or $10 million, that's not enough, right? The company needs to sell for $100 million. The company needs to go public. The way the math works out in these deals, that's often the idea, is that 99% of them are going to fail and 1% is going to be the Facebook or the Uber. And it's just a model that encourages that financial growth above all other priorities.
What other priorities do you have for your businesses then, if it is not just financial growth?
To make sure that we're making our customers' lives better, right? We're building software tools to make people's jobs easier, to save people time. So I think when you run a business, you're faced with a lot of long-term versus short-term decisions. Like the ultimate short-term decision is to scam everyone and take their money and not provide a service. And you're not going to be able to do that for long, but you can do it for a few people, right? But I don't know. Some people probably do it for years and years. And
Bernie Madoff did pretty well at that for quite a few years.
Bernie Madoff made a lot of money for a long time before it all fell apart for him, right? And he ruined people's lives in that example, right? So yeah, there's a lot that a business does besides just financial incentive. You're making things better for your customers and making things better for your team as well.
Yeah, so you've got multiple bottom lines in effect that you're balancing.
Yeah.
And if you'd gone with the wrong investors and not, picked people who were going to be a good fit, you might have gone in that direction.
Yeah, and the way that my fundraising was structured, people don't have any sort of like voting rights in the company. So technically I could, with the structure I had, just have anyone there. They can say whatever they want, but they don't have any real power. But that did not sound fun to me, to have a bunch of investors that I knew were going to, disagree with me or complain or be unhappy with how things were. And for me to be like, oh, whatever, they don't have any voting power, I can just ignore them. That doesn't sound like a situation I want to put myself in.
Well, and you picked smart people, right? You just didn't pick people who had $25K to spare. Right. To invest. You pick people who've had their own businesses or do continue to have their own businesses, probably have a lot of great ideas.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So let's shift now and talk about some of the mindset shifts you went through in this 30 days, because it's not like you were used to asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars from friends prior to this. How was that experience for you?
So it took me a while just to come to the idea of doing it, because I was nervous about doing it. So you referred to money that fell through in December. So there was one larger investment firm that I thought would do the whole 500K in December. And that didn't work out. It's still like having to do it all in 30 days in January. I also looked at doing crowdfunding options where I could do sort of a more public marketing campaign. And, both of those routes could have been good routes, but they felt safer to me than having to ask hundreds of people to give me $25,000. And I think, obviously, in retrospect, I should have planned ahead a lot better. People usually give themselves a much longer timeline for raising the money. I had such a short timeline because part of it was a mindset thing, that it took me being down to the wire to be like, this is really like the only way that it's going to happen. This is what I'm going to have to do if I want the company to survive.
So in this particular case, the way you overcame your resistance was putting yourself under so much time pressure that you had to grow personally and change your mindset.
It's probably like, I wish maybe, I had gone a gentle route. But yeah, in this case, it was like, the motivation was just, well, I'm not going to come this far with this product and then just shut it down. You know, that would feel terrible. So yeah, it was a strong enough motivation to overcome my resistance to be like, you know, and I think it's always helpful to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? Because we have these, you know, irrational fears that we haven't really spelled out. So in this case, you know, when you're scared of emailing someone, the fear is, I guess, that they won't, you know, they won't like you anymore. You know, maybe that they would cut off contact with you or something, like you lose a friend. And yeah, when I thought about that rationally, I'm like, I don't think I have anyone who's going to end the friendship over me pitching them. Like that would be very weird. And yeah, maybe I emailed some people that were like, I haven't heard from her in 3 years. Now she's just asking me for money. Like maybe they did think of it negatively, but like they didn't tell me. So it doesn't really matter. So it was definitely helpful to think through like, you know, why is this scary? Like what's the worst that could happen? Or maybe I'm going to email everyone and everyone's going to say no, and I'm not going to raise any money. And that didn't really seem so bad to me because it's like, well, I tried.
Yeah, I mean, if that did happen, you'd have got some information that, you know, people don't believe this is a good product. So,
right, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, any no in a pitch is just information. Right? That's one way to look at it. Are there any other techniques you use elsewhere in your business or life to overcome resistance you have, or mindsets that you need to shift?
I mean, sometimes I'll just like try to focus on the physical act. Like, I mean, I remember something that's what I would do was just focus on like the number of emails. So I would sit down and be like, okay, in this chunk of work, I'm going to send 20 emails, and focusing on like the execution, which in that case was like, okay, I have to find their email address. I have my template. I modify the template. I hit send. Like focusing on that part of it is really useful because it gets you out of the like, and what should I say? What if I say the wrong thing? It's like, don't worry about what to say. Just like paste in the template and hit send and do that 20 times. Like that is your task for the next hour. So yeah, just breaking it down into like, I'm not pitching people. I'm just like hitting send on emails. I think that was helpful too.
But you were actually customizing the emails to some extent too. It's not like you were just sending the same email to everyone.
Yeah, but they were pretty short, so I didn't have to customize much because I had a document that I had made of like, you know, all the information. And so it was a super short email, just basically linking them to the document. So I would just customize it with their name, and then like, it's funny because it makes you realize the different relationship. Like some people I was like, I'm going to put an exclamation point after their name. And some people I'm like, they're more of a comma after their name type of person. You know, so you sort of realize, you sort of get a feel for like, I don't know, how formal does it need to be? Or like, obviously if I had some sort of little like, congrats on the baby or whatever, I might throw that in the beginning.
Did you find you're thinking emotionally about the people before you hit send? Or was it a kind of mechanical, robotic kind of thing? I was thinking about them because often because I was convincing myself to send it, because there were some people that definitely brought up more resistance than others in sending the email. And I literally remember giving myself the pep talk of just like, just close your eyes and hit send. You know, someone would come up and I'm like, oh, I know they're a good contender, but this is making me nervous for whatever reason. Or some people, maybe you're like more afraid. So you pulled out at the last minute on some of the emails. Is that what you're saying? You started the process and then you're like, I'm not sending this one.
You know, I would send them. I did pull out on the follow-up. There were some people that I got too nervous about. Like some people I followed up with a lot more than others, because the way I did the follow-up is I just used Boomerang to bring it back to my inbox. So usually when it came back, I would like send the follow-up email, and some of them I was like, they're not interested. I'm not going to follow up. And I'm sure I lost out. I'm sure there were some people that I should have followed up with that I got too nervous and just like couldn't do it.
Maybe not. Maybe that was your intuition saying this is just not feeling good. I don't want to go into this.
And sometimes those were the more like the long shot people, the people that are like, I don't think they do any startup investing. I haven't talked to them in such a long time. I don't know if they check this email address anymore. Like, but I'm just going to send it because who knows? Those were often the people that I didn't follow up with too, because I'm like, this seems like such a long shot. I don't think I should like spend more time on this.
Yeah. Well, when I'm doing outreach to people, I sometimes I follow up, sometimes I don't. But if I feel there's definitely a thing there, I'll go. I'll find their phone number. I'll message them on Twitter, or So we always have a choice on how aggressively we want to follow up with someone. Which brings me to the next thing. The follow up, not wanting to bug people. It seems like you may have had a mindset thing about, it's I shouldn't follow up. It's bugging them. If they haven't replied, they don't really want to hear from me, or all kinds of other crap going on in our heads.
Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting one because I give advice to other people all the time about following up and about how important it is. And the thing that I will never forget is many years ago, I heard someone speaking on stage who's someone, who gets approached a lot and gets a lot of cold emails and stuff. And he said, I wait to see if they follow up 3 times because I get so many emails. I just want to see who's serious. And if they're not serious enough to follow up 3 times, I just don't respond to the email. And that was such a huge mindset shift for me to think, like following up is a good trait that he looks for, because to him, that's a signal that this person really wants to get to him, really has something to say, really is persistent and serious. And I've just seen over the years how often it takes a long time and a lot of follow-up with people. So I knew all that stuff rationally, but I had to like remind myself often of that rational thought, because what I would go into is like, I had to constantly remind myself that I was presenting them an opportunity, not asking them for money. Because from my perspective, it felt like I'm asking them for money. I'm sending them an email being like, will you send me a wire transfer for $25,000? And that's where I really put myself in the shoes of when I had examined other people's businesses as an investor. I thought a lot about my friend Stephanie, who's opening up a wine bar in New York City, to give her a little shout out, because she had shared with me about her business. I had a call with her and her partners. I had really researched it. I really pursued it. And I decided not to invest. But I was so excited about her business. Like, I really wanted updates whenever she would do anything. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I wanted to see what everything looked like. So that was such a great reminder that even though I had said no to the investment, I was super invested in her success and super supportive and excited for her. So I would like constantly think about Stephanie, think about that situation and be like, okay, I'm not asking them for money. I'm presenting them with an opportunity that they might be really excited about to be involved in this, and obviously to make money down the road. And many people did respond that way. Many people were like, thank you so much for including me. I'm really glad that you told me about this. And I got so many no's that were like, I'm so excited for you. Like, please keep me posted. Please let me know how I can spread the word and how I can help. So that was a really cool outcome. And that was also something that kept me going, is how supportive people were.
That is great. Now, I know you had a non-traditional pitch document instead of a pitch deck.
Yeah.
But you realized afterwards that maybe there were some issues with that. Just the energy didn't feel great. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a friend gave me some feedback, and he's like, you're a marketer and you know about marketing, and this pitch document was just like, it was kind of bland. It didn't have a lot of passion in it. You didn't seem that excited about the business. And when I heard him say it, I knew that it was true. And I think the reason was I had so many hesitations about like tricking people into investing or hyping it up too much. Because I was very cognizant that a lot of people I was pitching, I mean, like very few were like professional investors. A lot of them had never done a startup investment before. You know, it's their own money. It's not institutional money. So I really wanted them to understand the risks. I really wanted them to, you know, feel good about it and make sure that they knew what they were getting into. And I think in retrospect, I took that a little too far, and I was almost like hedging of like, well, don't get too excited about this opportunity. You know, I just want to make sure, you know, it might not work out. Like, I think I did not put my like full press marketer on it, which probably would have given it the best opportunity. Because I was like nervous about, you know, overselling it or over promising, which I think is a little silly, because you can definitely give it all your enthusiasm and all your passion, and obviously still, of course, be super honest about, you know, the risks involved and potential outcomes and things like that.
Now, how much of that was just the words in the document, and how much of it was your energy kind of soaked into the document and came out?
What's the difference?
Well, good question.
Words came from me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's too much of a difference there. I would get really excited. You know, it was a Google Doc, and you know, you see those little icons when someone's looking at it at the top, and I was constantly checking it to see how people were looking at it, because it made me feel really good when there was a bunch of people looking at it and being like, ooh, who are these people? Are people spreading this around? And then it would make me like a little sad if no one was looking at it.
Yeah. Well, what's the difference between the words and the energy of your document? I think there actually can be a difference. Yes, it did come from you. You wrote those words. But I think if someone else had written the same words, the document wouldn't necessarily feel the same. So I'm kind of wondering if somehow your lack of confidence and fears kind of came out.
Yeah, probably so. And, you know, I did a non-traditional format. The traditional format is a PowerPoint or, you know, whatever presentation. There's certain sections that you include that I didn't include. So there was also a lot of underlying decisions and what went into it that came, you know, from my own beliefs. And obviously it did, you know, it wasn't a total failure. People did invest, and it did okay. But yeah, it was interesting considering, how much it's like one of those catch-22s that I didn't know I could do it until I did. If I had done it at the end of the month, after a bunch of people were giving me money, I'm sure I could have done it much more confidently, you know? And the other thing is, as anyone who's run a business knows, like, people are very deadline motivated. So money did come in the whole time, but I knew it would take, like, I told everyone we're closing on January 31st, so I knew that we'd get a lot more yeses at the end, which is absolutely what happened, you know. So I didn't know that we were going to pull it off until the last week, really.
Sounds like quite a roller coaster adventure you had there.
Yeah.
So one of the down points of that roller coaster was when you doubted yourself. How did you overcome that? Because you had to get up every day and pitch new people or follow up with people or have phone calls with people and convince them this is a great idea and invest in it. And yet underneath it, you've got self-doubt going on some days.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about, like, serving the businesses that I've created, because they are something separate from me. I mean, especially once you have employees, of course, you are providing jobs for people, you know, are providing some sort of guarantee that hopefully tomorrow they'll have a paycheck, not forever, but, you know, you're offering some sort of stability. So I think that was a motivator for me in overcoming the doubt. Was like, we've built this product, you know, in this case a small team, but we have this small team of people. We have some people who've already agreed to invest. Like, I'm not gonna let my own silly fears about sending an email kind of ruin everything that I've built already. And I owe it to this product to see if it can succeed. And like you said, the fundraising was a test of does this have any viability? Because I was thinking of it like you were, like, okay, well, if we're not, I know a lot of people, if we're not able to raise this money, like, we can't convince anyone this is a good idea. Like, you know, maybe it's not. Maybe there's not a place in the market for this. So I really wanted to know if there was a place in the market for it. I really wanted to know if other people could see the vision of the idea. So yeah, like serving the business instead of just serving myself, I think is one way that I overcame that doubt.
Now, let's talk about your energetic experience in fundraising, because my understanding is it was quite exhausting. How did you exhaust yourself during this process? Because other people might have found it exhilarating.
Yeah. It's always good to have that perspective, right? That other people might have found it exhilarating. Because you forget.
I mean, it's like that. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Parenthood that Steve Martin made many years ago. There's a scene, and he's like overwhelmed by having children. And his mother's there, or his grandmother, and he's in a room watching his little child perform, you know, on the stage. And she's messing up because little children don't do stuff perfect. And he's terrified and he feels nauseous. And then the movie shows he's on a roller coaster and he's about to puke. And next to him, his grandmother's like laughing away and she's having a good time because she's on the roller coaster.
Yeah, yeah.
So is there some way that we have a mindset thing, or we do something energetic that changes that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize how exhausting it was until I was talking to a friend about it, and he's like, I don't remember ever a time in my life when I doubted myself as much as when I was raising money for my company. And I was like, oh, wow. I hadn't even realized that was going on because I had put so many constraints on it to not make it what would be terrible to me. So like one thing is I didn't travel. I didn't even do that many phone calls. Actually, it was really 99% emails, phone calls with a few people that were, very serious about it. I didn't do any travel. After pitching like 2 traditional VCs, I was like, nope, like this is not fun. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I did try really hard to make it as enjoyable for myself as possible. And I think that made me, when it wasn't enjoyable, it was like, oh, like what's wrong with you? Like, how are you complaining about this? You're not flying to San Francisco and, just attending 15 meetings in a day. Like you've made this really easy for yourself. But I think, part of the reason that it was exhausting is because, well, one, the whole thing that you're doing is just like fielding people's opinions about whether or not this is going to work. And whether that's an opinion and them saying yes or no, or people will like give you feedback on the business or be like, I think it'll work this way or that way. And also my decision about not going VC is something a lot of people thought was a really bad idea, because that's the traditional way that, especially a business that's like a software development tool, the type of business that it is. And so I constantly like question myself of, does this product have a shot without going that route? All the competitors have gone that way, and it's just a bad strategic decision that I'm making. And those sort of doubts were constantly reinforced by other people's opinions, not in them being negative in any way, just like, oh, here's like how I would, do a business like this or have done a business like this or whatever. So yeah, that's what made it so exhausting, is that you're fielding a lot of other people's opinions, and maybe people who don't find it exhausting are like better at fielding those opinions than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, when I published my first book, I had a lot of those kind of issues. And the trick I did isn't, I was taking all those opinions and taking them straight into my heart. Mm-hmm. And what I did is I kind of stepped slightly to the side so I could still see all the opinions, but they didn't zap into me. Mm-hmm. And I could pay attention to them and, respond, but I wasn't taking it so personally. And I wasn't taking it energetically, because I find with any of these whether it's fundraising or writing a book or launching a product, there's a big energetic component that people just focus their energy on you, and some of them start sucking your energy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens for me.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to protect your energy can help with that, in my experience. Anyway, we're coming near to the end of our time. I've got a few more questions on intuition, and I'm kind of curious, why you're proud to use your intuition in your business.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, intuition is something that everyone has. Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink is a great book about intuition that gave me more understanding of how I perceive it. And a lot of it is that you are using a lot of information just in a way that you're not conscious of. You're using input that you've gathered over the years, and your brain is giving you an output. You're just not always able to see what all that input was and why it's connected. So I think to ignore that is just it's like, why? Why would you ignore all this great ideas and information that you're being given? And I think when we do ignore it, we're often trying to be more quote unquote rational. It's like, oh, I really feel like this is the right call, but if I thought about this rationally, or sometimes, if I look at what someone else did, or if I look at, the usual path or the traditional path, it's this. And I think that's sort of silly, because every situation is 100% unique. I mean, just, truly every situation in this world has so many different factors that there is no, and especially when we're talking about entrepreneurship or how you live your life, right? There is no path of this way will work out for you, and this way will not work out. It's so much more complicated than that. So it's sort of a lie we tell ourselves, and we're like, oh, I should listen to the rational opinion, because that rational opinion can't predict the future any better than anything else. So you have a lot of information about the world and about how you personally fit in well into it, right? And I think maybe that's a lot of what intuition is. It's like, okay, here's the situation, and I've known myself, in my case for 33 years now. Here's how I might best navigate the situation. Here's how it might best work for me, because I have gathered a lot of information about what works for me and what doesn't.
Well, that's great. And, I'm on a mission for all entrepreneurs to openly use their intuition in their business, because I think they'll make better decisions, make more money, have more fun, be less stressed. And also, I think if all business leaders use their intuition as well as their rational mind, they make less stupid decisions that hurt other people or the planet, because they get a warning signal from their intuition. So my final question to you is, what would it take to make business intuition more openly used this year?
In the world? In
the whole world, yeah. Let's not restrict it just to Austin.
What would it take to get it more openly used? I mean, I love people questioning common ideas. I mean, that's a really amazing thing about the internet, right? It gives us all this platform and this voice where we can publish and be heard. And I think the more people share contrarian ideas, or the more people share, everyone said to do it this way, and I did it that way, it's very encouraging for others, and it gives you those little points of evidence of stories of other people, using their intuition with a successful outcome. I put that in quotes because you don't want it to just be like, I made $1 million using my intuition. Let's talk about more of how this worked out for you in your life. But yeah, I think I write, I blog sometimes at Roeder.com, and I do often talk about decisions that I'm making that are unconventional. There's a post called Why I Quit Trying to Make It Work that I think you could definitely say is a post all about using your intuition to say, I'm going to stop slamming my head against brick walls. So yeah, I try to share stuff like that. I love when others do as well.
Fabulous. Well, we'll link that blog post in the show notes together with all the other things you've mentioned and the original story where you wrote about raising 30K in 30 days. And went from 300, oh my God, 300K, 350K to be exact. And we'll put those in the show notes at intuitiveleadershipmastery.com. If people want to find you online, what are the best ways to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at LKR. I blog at my name, Roeder, Roeder.com. And you can find my businesses at meetedgar.com and Ropig, Ropig.com.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Laura.
Thank you.